Hello and Merry almost Christmas. It's only 1 week away, but I won't actually be home when it's actually Christmas, so that's why we are playing Santa Claus Is In Trouble. Basically, the goal of the game is to collect gifts, or not to collect them, as I am doing right now, and make it to the end of the level, and the amount of gifts and the amount of time you took will show how many points you have. And in the end, once you reach a game over, or until you've reached the end of the game, you will have a chance to upload your score to the leaderboards, which don't actually work anymore. In fact, it just crashes the game, so I wouldn't really recommend that you do that. But hey, it's a free game, so there you go. So, yeah, Santa Claus is in trouble, so he has to collect all these gifts in this very weird world filled with flying platforms, strange trees, and hopefully his house and arrows and other kinds of all nasty shenanigans, including some enemies which you will be seeing later, but not just yet. But you are Santa, you are carrying a bag, and you have to collect presents, and the timer does run down, but once it reaches 0, it just stops. You don't die or anything, you just get less points, which you will very briefly see in the following thing, which I will basically skip every single time until the last time, because it takes about 3 years to get through that screen normally. And to be frank, it doesn't really change anything either, and if you collect every single gift in the game, then you won't really get anything different than when you wouldn't do that. So yeah, it's all just for the points, and I didn't really bother with that. So enjoy the magical Santa hopping around, collecting things with his double jump action, as Santa is well known for. He's very well known for being able to double jump, and for having some reindeer, so he doesn't have to do that, and he could have just used those reindeers to, fly through every level and get everything that way, but I guess that would kind of defeat the purpose. So in the top left shows your amount of lives, and I think you get extra lives by getting a whole bunch of presents, but also just by picking up extra life icon things, which is the CDV icon, which are the creators of the game. The thing on top is the clock, top right is the amount of presents you picked up. The bottom right has the amount of points you have in total, and the bottom left shows which level you're at. There's 10 levels in the game, and I will be playing through all of them. But that is not the important thing. First of all, also, don't touch enemies. If you touch an enemy, you die. You cannot hurt enemies because you're Santa, and Santa's a very nice person who doesn't hurt anyone. And this includes these demonic elves that are walking around in here. So, yeah, don't catch fire, don't jump into things. Basically, just stay away from stuff, or you will fly approximately 3 miles away from your current location, and then you will just go back to the latest golden flag that you picked up, like that one over there, which makes a wonderful sound, though I'm sure you can't hear it, because in this game the music is so much louder than the volume of the normal sounds and stuff. But that is not important. What is important is that I will now tell you the amazing story, the real story of how Santa came to be. While most people believe that it was all just a clever marketing ploy of Coca-Cola, which it totally isn't. Oh no, Coca-Cola just stole the story from the real story. Oh yes, that's definitely what happened. Well, basically, once upon a time, there were 3 small middle-aged men who were sitting in their houses all alone, and it was all actually the same house, and they were related in some way, shape, or form. Actually, they were family, so yeah, I could have just said that before, but I didn't, so therefore they are now family. So their names were Bob, Jim, and Antalaws. They didn't really like the third one, but there you go. Antalaws and Bob and Jim were sitting around celebrating Christmas with the family, because there were also other people in the room, but they were not relevant to the story, so I didn't mention them. They were celebrating Christmas with their family, and suddenly they went, "Hey, what is Christmas anyway?" And they were like, "Well, it's a thing in the Bible and whatnot," but then blah, blah, blah. So they decided to look it up, but they got about halfway, and then they stopped looking because something interesting was on TV or something, I don't know. But basically, they decided to go on a journey to find treasure. Yes, that's what they were going to do, especially Antelos, because Antelos was a very famous treasure hunter back in his day. And, yeah, Antelos was a very big treasure hunter because he once found the magical treasure of a roller coaster somewhere on an island filled with monkeys. But that's not important right now. What is important is that Antelos, Bob, and Jim all went on this journey, on December, and when they did that, they decided they should just go east until they find something like real treasure hunters do. So they went east from wherever they started. That's not really relevant either. They just kind of went east. That's what they did back then. And eventually they found a tricycle. Yes, a tricycle. And this tricycle is all very relevant to the story because you see, this was a magical tricycle who once was owned by a magical fairy called Strudent. Yes, Strudent the magical fairy once owned this tricycle, and they all knew about this somehow because the person's name was on it, and Strudent is not a very common name after all, so yeah, they just kind of assumed it was that Strudent. So, as they all did a little dance around the tricycle, as was foretold in the legend of the tricycle of Strudent, they found a strange alien suddenly coming out of the tricycle, which was very weird. And yeah, they all kind of assumed it was Strudent coming back to life and that he always just was an alien all along, and that there was some sort of mistranslation going on in the story which caused it to be an alien or caused it to be a fairy or whatever I just said instead of an alien. But instead, it wasn't Strudent. It was in fact Lemon, the alien. Yes, Lemon the alien, who had been stuck in that magical tricycle for the last 200 years because him and Strudent had a fight, and then Strudent put the alien in her tricycle and then left it there. Yeah. That I'm not quite sure how that didn't make it into the original story at first, but that's not really important. What is important is that they saved Lemon, and they were all very, very happy. So, yes. As they found Lemon, he said, "Lemon, that's me, will grant you 3 wishes if you find the man who once was a father of the pre-mentioned Strudent." Yeah, that's what he said. So they decided that they wanted those 3 wishes because then they could get some milk, and they would never have to go to the supermarket for milk again, which is a fairly neat deal if you ask me. So they looked up this Strudent and found out that the father of this Strudent person lived on the North Pole. Yes, the North Pole. That was a kind of a strange thing because not many people lived there at the time, and to be frank, still not a lot of people live there, but that's not really important right now either. So, yeah, Lemon decided to go with them because he was feeling kind of lonely after being stuck for like 200 years in that tricycle, which was really quite a weird endeavor on its own. But, yeah, apparently it gets kind of dull in there, so he decided to go along with Joe, Bob, and Salmon. Yes, his name is Salmon now because he decided it would be a better treasure hunter name. So Bob, Jim, and Salmon decided to go with Lemon to the North Pole to find the father of the person who ordered the fairy to put the lemon in the tricycle. Yes, so as they went to the North Pole, they came across a flying reindeer who asked what they were doing over there, and they told them the story because I can't be bothered to tell it again. And the reindeer said, well, good luck with that, and he went off, and yeah, that's where the flying reindeer came in, by the way. That was all, yeah, it wasn't originally part of the story until they found him, so yeah, there we go. And so they got to the North Pole, and they found this giant factory. And they thought, gosh, who would build a factory on the North Pole? That's kind of silly. So they all went into this factory to find out who was the owner of the factory. So they decided to, yeah, they went in. So yeah, when they went in, they found out a magical secret that it was in fact a evil robot who owned the factory and was planning to take over some sort of vegetable kingdom, which was kind of weird. infiltrating someone's fortress with a giant sword, and it was all very vague, and eventually a bridge collapsed and some plumber came, I don't know, but it was all really weird. But they decided that they would stop this evil smithy. That was its name, by the way. Very coincidental. There is some other game, supposedly, that has this same kind of story, but that's not important. But yes, they came across this person eventually after battling their way through the factory filled with evil bosses that they had seen before but couldn't really remember because it was such a long time ago. Like this guy who shot arrows. He wasn't very mean, but he got beaten, so that's okay. So after they defeated all the bosses and stuff and went through all the puzzles, they found the smithy person, yes, and he said, "You may face me, but my birds will stop you." So from now on, the North Pole is filled with birds who don't fly anywhere, which is quite weird, but yeah, there you go. So after they fought his birds, who are now banished here in this world for some reason, they found Smithy all alone, and he went all, "Darn! You defeated my bird, but you will never defeat me! Ha 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 ha!" To which Lemon replied, "Meep, meep, 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 meep," and he shot him with a laser, and Smithy didn't like that, so yeah. Smithy was all, "Grr, why did you shoot me with a laser, little Lemon?" And Lemon said, "How do you know my name?" To which he responded, "Lemon, I read it on your name tag." And yeah, then Lemon kind of went, "Oh yeah, that's a good point, I forgot about that." So yeah, and then they became friends because he was the first person he met who could read. So now Lemon was on Smithy's side, and Joe, Salmon, and Albatross had to fight off two evil deities of evilness, which is Smithy and Lemon, who had turned evil because Smithy could read. Yes. So then they went to a button. Yes, a button. So the button could be pressed, and thus they could trap Albatross, Salmon, and Jehoshaphat. So they would be trapped. Yes. So they could no longer beat things, and then they would be all happy and evil and stuff. So they fell into the hole, which trapped them, by the way. And this hole was not very big, so they weren't trapped for an awfully long time. And then somebody thought, "Hey, maybe I should have dug a bigger hole," which he didn't. So yeah, then they were finally encountered in a final battle to eternal something. So yeah, they were in this eternal battle, and Smitty said, "You will never defeat me. I have bested many kingdoms back in my day, and you are just a little worm compared to those people. You do not stand a chance, mortals." And they said, "Gosh, that's awfully melodramatic." And he said, "Yeah, I am always awfully melodramatic." Ha 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 ha. And yeah, that was a kind of a fair point, I guess. So there was suddenly this giant mutated monster elf appeared, who fought on Smithy's side, who just kind of went at all times. He couldn't speak. It was all kind of sad, actually. But yeah, that's all he said. So they were, yes, Jehoshaphat suddenly took out his rocket launcher and yelled, "It's a trap!" and shot him, and he won that. Yes. So then suddenly Smithy was all alone because Lemon got bored and walked away, which was awfully sad to yes, to some people. And if you look at the screen just now, I died, and that's what happens. But yes, they were all awfully sad, but it was okay because they got their 3 wishes anyhow, and they now have an infinite supply of milk. So they don't really have to worry about that anymore, but they still decided to fight Smithy to save the evil kingdom, which wasn't evil, but could have turned evil if Smithy had gotten his little hands on it. Yes, his hands. So as he grabbed a CDV logo for an extra life, he jumped down to get some presents and then danced. Yes, he danced the magic dance, which caused an earthquake, which was all very inconvenient. And then the floor under everyone, including Smithy, crumbled into dust, which was apparently kind of hard to stand on. So they were all in this hidden area underneath the factory, and the entire factory blew up afterwards. So they were kind of happy that the ground turned into dust, because else they would be into that explosion, and yeah, that would be all kind of messy. So yeah, so as they fought Smithy, he eventually lost, yes, in a battle. So after he had lost, he decided that he would no longer be evil, and then he exploded as well, which was all very convenient, so that way they could be very much sure indeed that he would no longer be evil until eventually summoned back again by some inevitable evil force or whatnot. So, yes. After all that happened, they went back to the South Pole where they originally lived. By the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, I probably didn't, but that's not really important. They went back to the South Pole where they thought, "Gosh, what an adventure we just had, don't you agree, Lemon?" To which Lemon agreed, "Yes, why did I come along with you guys again?" And he said, "Well, you have to stand on this platform to make it go forward, and we needed your help." And yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason why Lemon came along. So, and Lemon thought that was fair enough, really, because they still had 2 wishes. So yeah, they might as well. So they thought, we need something to remember this story by if we want to tell it to our grandchildren later. Although we're all middle-aged men alone, and we don't have, we just are with our family, so our grandchildren is kind of a long shot, but there you go. But Lemon thought, I have a very cunning plan. Let's force the Coca-Cola people to come up with a red man with a hat that's also red, and all of his clothes end in some sort of weird furry fashion. Yes, and his hat has a ball on its end, and it's more of a sleeping cap, really, with a ball on its end. Yeah, and he has this giant bag with presents that he gives to children as long as they buy Coca-Cola products. Yes, that's my cunning idea, and they just kind of went, well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Yes, but we'll put him in a train! We'll put him in a train and give him flying reindeers! And, well, around that time, everyone kind of agreed that Lemon had gone insane, but that's a different story for another time. But, yes, so Lemon had gone insane, but he granted that wish anyway, even though really no one asked for that. And thus, Santa was born! Yes, that's where Santa came from. And now you know, and now you can tell that exact story to everyone you know, so now everyone will know where Santa came from, because otherwise clearly they will never ever find out where Santa came from, and that will make them very sad. They will just assume, oh, isn't that one of Coca-Cola people? And you can go, no, there's a different story. You see, there's this alien called Lemon, and yeah, then you can tell the story entirely different. Also, if you stand still long enough in this game, you get this weird little semi-screensaver thing, which you will briefly see, where you see the CDV logo, and you'll just kind of scroll around Santa for some reason. I'm not sure why, and it's all kind of inconvenient. So, yeah, make sure not to stand around for too long, or scary things will happen. So, now that we are at the end of our story, we are in level 10 as well, which is all very convenient because I have officially lost things to talk about completely. That was a very nice sentence. And such, let's just describe what we see here. So, we're somewhere where there's a house on the bottom in this awfully horrid black land with random platforms that come from, well, the floor. I'm kind of scared what would happen if you would come into that land of eternal darkness, but there you go. Where Santa gets attacked by snowmen who bounce around, who are not at all from Super Mario 64, because that was a completely different thing, and they clearly did not have snowballs or snowmen who jumped around like that in that exact same fashion. So, yes, clearly this is not a ripoff at all. So, yes, and that's why Santa. But yes, he is getting attacked by snowmen who bounce around, birds well, gigantic birds, not to mention that. I mean, if you imagine Santa's about the size of a person, and those birds are about twice his size sometimes, then you can imagine that's a pretty big bloody bird. So please do not touch giant birds, or clearly you will fly off into a direction which you do not want to fly into. So yes, do not fly into the birds which are big. Also, don't attack the evil elf people who wear long necks shirts, and I don't know, it's all very weird. But yes, if you ever find yourself in a land like this, then you've probably done something wrong with your life. So please do not end up in a place like this, and we will all be very happy people. And I think I remember dying at this point. Yes, I did. And if you couldn't guess by now, yes, this is a pre-recorded thing, and blah 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 blah. I didn't feel like adding commentary at the time, because at the time my throat hurt, and it still kinda does, but oh well, that's a different story. The story for now is about Christmas, and how we will have saved it right about now. And yeah, this is basically the scoring screen that I've skipped every time, because it's dull and not very interesting. And you get a whole bunch of points, and it's all fine and dandy. And I think you actually get more points in this level than you do in the other levels, but that's not really important, is it? So yeah, I'll put a link in the description where you can download this game, because it is a freeware game, and if you feel like playing this at some point, then well, you can. This is pretty much the ending screen, regardless how many gifts you've gotten. And yeah, then Santa on top, looking kind of confused with the elf and the really big-eyed bird and a non-moving snowman. Here you can type your name and upload the score, which you want, and then I can wish you all a Merry Christmas or whatever holiday you're going to celebrate, and I am going now, so bye-bye.